that, if you want to be a college athlete, there's a place for you. And whether it's at JUCO, getting onto a 4-year school, or maybe NAI or Division two, Division three, there's a place if you're willing to work hard and be a student athlete. So that's what we're doing here with Airey Bros. Cool. All right, y'all. Welcome back. Happy New Year. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. Thanks for tuning in. We are excited for our guests tonight. This is a special episode to kick off the new year. But before we dive in, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, hit follow on all podcast platforms, like and subscribe. And you know how much the Airey Bros love coffee. So if you're getting any value out of what we're doing over here, maybe click on that Buy Me a Coffee link and give us a little value back. And most importantly, visit Black Sheep Endurance for all your running coaching needs. You got an ultra marathon, a marathon, maybe you got a couch to 5K coming up on the calendar in 2025. Holler at your boy. We'll get you dialed in. We'll crush those goals. All right, y'all, let's get into it. Y'all know the Airey Bros represent junior college. It's something that is near and dear to our hearts. And that's why we are stoked to have two incredible cross-country and track and field coaches join us tonight to give us the inside scoop on recruiting in the junior college. Tonight's guest, back again with us, Coach Marc Bierbaum from Iowa Western. He is returning after coming off of the men's half marathon national championship and a runner-up finish in the cross-country championships back in November. As you remember, Coach has had 14 NJCAA individual national champions, 2024 NJCAA women's indoor track and field national champions, 12 top 5 finishes at nationals in just 2 seasons. In that time, he's had 38 school records broken, 147 All-Americans, and he's been the ICCAC and USTFCCA Midwest Region Outdoor Coach of the Year in 2023, and the USTFCCCA Men's and Women's Cross Country Midwest Region Coach of the Year in 2024. Joining us as well is a little friendly rivalry with Coach Dee Brown from Iowa Central. He's with us for the first time, but he's in his 21st season at Iowa Central. His women's team got second place at the NJCAA Cross Country National Championship, as well as 8-time NJCAA Women's Cross Country Nationals Championships, most in NJCAA history. 5 times on the men's side, and 8 half marathon national titles. That is an NJCAA record as well. He's had 14 National Cross Country Coach of the Year honors and 31 Region 11 Coach of the Year honors across both the men's and women's programs. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Airey Bros Radio tonight. Happy New Year. Hope you had a wonderful holiday, and let's get into it.
Thank you for the intro. Maybe take a drink of water now.
That's a lot of NJCAA.
Yes, a lot of letters.
A lot of letters, especially the USTFCCA
Yeah.
one.
That one gets me. That third C is the one that always gets me in that. But yeah, how you all doing? Did you guys have a great holiday season?
It was good. It was great.
Great time to relax. Yep.
Yep. We didn't go anywhere this year. Just spent time here and relaxed and enjoyed.
Okay. Did you host any of the international athletes?
We had something right before everybody left.
Okay.
I had a little dinner. The Kenyans actually came over and cooked ugali for the family.
Nice.
And that was pretty cool. My oldest doesn't eat a lot of meat, or she's pretty picky, and she ate it all. She loved it. So that was pretty cool.
Okay. Awesome. Coach Brown, how about you?
We had a huge Thanksgiving bash, actually. So we had 20 athletes, either from the corners of the U.S. or corners of the world, over, and the full Thanksgiving spread, traditional, let them try everything, and had a lot of fun and crammed as many bodies into a few rooms as we could. But yeah, so, and we just kind of chilled over Christmas break. So,
and now you're gearing up and ready for athletes coming back and kick off the indoor season.
Exactly.
I think he's going to the airport here after we get done.
Exactly. And you said kick off the season and ready to, kick some other coaches.
Okay.
We'll get into that. Right. We'll get into it starting early.
Yeah. I got something for him over here.
Yeah. So I guess before we get into the recruiting and that sort of stuff, if you have any of the socials, Coach, again, you want to give those out. Coach Brown, give those out as well. Your own personal stuff or anything where athletes, recruits, parents, anyone that has questions or want to find out more about Iowa Western or Iowa Central, I'll hand it over to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. My personal stuff's pretty boring, so I don't recommend any of that. It's just gonna be lots of pictures of kids and stuff, that when we're all happy, the good stuff. Otherwise, if you go to any hashtag ICXETF, you'll find all of our um, stuff on X and Instagram and Facebook. So
Okay.
And I'm at Coach Marc Bierbaum is the Instagram, and then our team page is at Reavers_track cross country. Um, the Twitter may be slightly different, but that's our Instagram page.
Awesome. And we will put all that stuff in the show notes for you as well too. We'll get you set up. So I guess yeah, we want to get into recruiting and talking about some of that stuff. Jimmy and I, we as mentioned, we were both junior college All-Americans, but I think for us the junior college experience in New Jersey is much different than what we see in states like Iowa and Kansas and some of the other where I think all of the junior colleges in New Jersey are Division three. Now that's a different landscape when it comes to wrestling, but for cross country and track and field, there's different meets and there's different standards and different things like that. So, um, I guess we could start off with, and it was just kind of default that we had a county college and that's where I went. Where we didn't. It wasn't until I went to nationals where it was like, oh, there's people that stay on campus, or there's people that come from there was a bunch of guys that went to Nebraska and Iowa State back then in the Division One, and that's when you start to learn about some of the international students and what they're doing. So, um, I guess maybe we could start there and just talk about recruiting and maybe the benefits of junior college versus a 4-year school right off the bat for some. I know, Coach, last time you were on, we kind of talked about that a little bit, and then maybe just kind of the different experiences between a 4-year school or the NCAA and then the junior college experience.
So, you talked about the divisions. Kind of start there. There's Division One, there's Division Two, there's Division Three. You're right. Most of the East Coast is D3. There's a handful of D1s out there, or one or two. Is there more than two D in Monroe in I feel like
Essex, I believe.
Essex?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a couple D1s out in that area. Large amount of the D1 regions are Kansas, Iowa, and then there's scattered into Texas and New Mexico and down there. D2 is really only cross country division.
Okay.
Track is D1 and D3. And then we all come together for the half marathon in regards to competition. D and we're in the ICCAC. It's an Iowa conference. Us, so Iowa Western, Iowa Central, Indian Hills, DMAC, which is Des Moines Area Community College, Hawkeye, NIAC. There's a new one coming, NICC, Scott, Southeastern, Southwestern. Most of us compete in track and cross. Scott is not. Have they been doing
Yeah, they
track?
didn't compete this year.
Yeah. Um, and that that kind of gives you a rundown of our region and who we are, and Dee can answer on some of the others.
Yeah, I mean that's really kind of the gist of it there. And I always say there's really three reasons people would choose a junior college. Whether it's the cost, trying to save money, especially if you're from the local area of that community college or in state. Academics, whether it be you need more safety nets, you need more assistance, more attention, or you're looking for a fresh start because maybe it didn't work at some other 2-year or 4-year school. And then athletics, obviously it's a stepping stone for a lot of athletes. Not that that's the main goal for all of our students, because Mark and I get plenty of athletes that uh, it's just I just want to try it. Like, hey, I know I might not be the greatest athlete, but my plan is to go to Iowa State and be a student in 2 years. But I would love to be a college athlete for 1 or 2 years just to see what it's like. And so we get quite a few kids that do that. Um, I just had a kid in my office today from Fort Dodge, where we're located, and it's a good place to not know what you want to do. He just wasn't sure, like academically. I don't know. I have three or four different areas that really are interesting to me, and he didn't know which direction. So it's not like he wanted to go and start shelling out more money at Iowa State, for instance, and get into a set degree path where he could come here and dabble and try to figure out what he wants to do, save money, live at home, save even more money. And so it's like I tell kids, it's a safe place to not know what the next step is because you have time to figure it out because you have to take all these general education requirements no matter what for 90 some percent of our majors. And then it's a chance to test the waters and see what you like and, kind of get an idea of, yep, I want to study this or nope, I don't want to study that. And then it gives you more time to also figure out what is my next step when I graduate, is I thought Iowa State was where I wanted to be, or hey, look, there's a few other options now. Maybe I want to check out this, or maybe I could still be an athlete and go to this NAIA school that I never considered before. So,
Yep. And then you were talking about dorms, and living arrangements. All of us are different.
yeah.
Some of us have multiple different dorm types,
Mhm.
and some of us don't have dorms at all. Same thing with the cafeteria. Dee and I, both of us are pretty lucky, I think, in regards to the
Mhm.
cafeteria side. We have very nice setups for that, where some don't have cafeterias on campus at all.
Yeah, I was very naive. Like when I first came to the campus in Fort Dodge 2 decades ago, I didn't know anything about it. My brother attended a community college, but that was literally he drove 10 minutes. There was two buildings, took his class, drove home. There was nothing else. I mean, there's no other opportunities for anything. And so that's all I knew. And I got here and I was like, there's apartments, there's dormitories, there's a cafeteria, there was a softball field on campus, and I was just kind of blown away. Like I didn't expect that. So it really, again, like Mark said, we're all very different, but some of them definitely have that 4-year atmosphere. And I know Iowa Western, Iowa Central are two of those that are fortunate to have that. You get there and it's like this, it really prepares them well because they're experiencing all these things from all these different angles that they're going to run into when they move on to that next school, as opposed to driving that 10 minutes to that one building and going home at the end of the day and having no interaction with anybody else after that.
Yeah, that was kind of my experience. I don't want to speak for Jimmy, but it was kind of like jokingly, the stigma was the 13th grade of your high school,
Sure.
where you went to. Well, I was a little different because obviously we had practice sometimes, but it was like you go for your classes and maybe you see some people that you knew from high school or from another school of sports. Sometimes you didn't want to be seen, which I think is probably there's not that stigma in Iowa and Kansas and Texas and some of these other places where they
Right.
have uh, it's a totally different experience.
Hmm.
And so I'm curious, Coach, you mentioned that there is no D2 in track and field. Do those schools just not have programs, or do they go up or down
I think
uh,
all of them go D1.
D1?
Yeah,
Are there
there's
any D2s that go
Yeah,
D3?
so in because of numbers, there's not enough to have three distinct divisions. So there is a division 3. So basically it's scholarship and non-scholarship for indoor track. So if you're a traditionally D2 school, you're part of the scholarship division for indoor track. And the same for outdoor, because outdoor it's again, you're either D1 or D3. So
Okay. And we had Coach Kreider on from Wallace State, their Division 2 in cross country. We talked to him a little bit. Is the main difference the funding from Division 1 to Division 2? Is that because they have
yeah,
dorms
and
and
it's kind of
stuff?
just like the NCAA essentially, a D1. And just because you're D1, there's all sorts of varieties in NCAA D1, right? There's the haves and the haves not everywhere
Yep.
you are. So, you could be a D1 program and still not have any of the resources, but maybe all your other sports in your school are D1. So by default, we're just going to have a D1 program, but a D1 NJCAA school can give up to a full ride essentially, whereas a D2 can give up to ho-
It's
housing it or no,
either
room and
housing or
board.
tuition. I can't remember
Yeah,
which
one of the
one.
two. I don't remember. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's that
Okay.
limit.
Interesting. And yeah, that's probably for Jimmy and I, one of the biggest things we try to hit home with people is the financial aspect of it. We've had some private school wrestling coaches on recently, and they're talking like for high school, 40,000 plus dollars a year to go to a high school. So I mean, I guess maybe that would be a good place to touch is the financial. incentive or less burden, coming
Mhm.
from, especially like you said, when you don't necessarily know what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's a tough
Yep.
situation for a 17 or 18-year-old kid to be like, all right, what do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Mhm.
So I've had a lot of those conversations recently with kids that are looking at private schools and NAIs and things like that. And, the price tags are 50, 60 grand and they're getting these 25 and $30,000 scholarships, and that's great, but then they still have 20 and $25,000 left to pay. Most of, I would say, I can't speak on everyone, but a lot of the junior colleges, I did the math a couple years ago. We average around 15,000, $16,000. NCAA ones, public schools around 25,000, and then privates are like 50, 55. If you look at that private side of it, our starting point is below their ending point after all the financial aid is put into place. I talked to a kid, 25,000 is what she had left. And we're starting at like 16,500, 17. And that was after all her aid. So, but then you put it in perspective, what I like to talk about is too many parents and kids look at it just in 1 year, right? But if you look at it in the full 4, if you start at junior college and you save that, let's just take private, for example, you're saving 40 grand a year. You've saved $80,000 in those 2 years versus and I forget the total number, but in your 4 year period, if you started junior college and then you went to that private, you're saving $100,000. And if you're in a public, you're saving like 70 some thousand dollars, 60 some thousand dollars. If you look at it in a 4 year perspective, and you come to junior college and you get better or you get some good grades, there's a lot of really good transfer scholarships that in some cases in some schools are better than the academic scholarships you're getting right out of high school. And then the athletic scholarships, maybe you can't get on a roster right now, or you're a walk-on right now, and you come here and you get better. I've had plenty of kids come, they get better, and then they're getting pretty significant scholarships or good scholarships at the 4 year schools they're going to, making that cost even cheaper than it would have been if they would have went straight there.
How do
Amen.
you, amen. Yeah. How do you have that conversation where you're comparing the finances? Maybe they're able to go to a Division 1 school, but it's pricey. How do you have that conversation with a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid and try to get that to stick? Because I know I don't want to speak for Rich, but I know for me there was a stigma on junior college, and the only thing that kind of pushed me over that, it was either the military or go to junior college. There was no other option as far as or going to workforce. How do you kind of have that conversation, realize, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm not, one of these used car salesmen that's just trying
Mhm.
to get you to come to my program. I'm actually trying to help you and save you money in the process.
Yeah, it's funny because I tell them up front, like I said, I'm biased. I like my product. I like Iowa Central. Does that mean it's the right place for you? Not at all. You know, you're here to decide if this is good for you, and I'm here to decide if you're good for our program as well. And when it comes down to finances, oftentimes, I mean, if it's a recruit visiting campus, it's amazing if mom and dad are there because they need to hear that. Even though a lot of times, like, no, it's his decision. Well, sure it is, but at the same time, who's paying for it? Someone's paying for it, and we need to have that real talk about what is the bottom line. So I try to be as very transparent as possible, and I'll give them a cost estimate sheet and really just spell it all out so they can see it, and then encourage them. Make sure you compare this to what you're looking at these other schools, and don't forget this and this because, and I think the biggest, I don't know, charade that I hear often is, well, I'm getting a full scholarship here and a full there. Well, a full here and a full there and a full there, they're three different things. So when you say you got a full scholarship, you better find out what does that mean exactly, because a full scholarship here is full tuition, a full here is tuition, room, board, book, everything. So make sure you find, ask that question. It's important.
Yep. And I think both of us, D and I, we fight that aspect. They're like, oh, we're getting this huge scholarship. Oh, and maybe D and I are asking the kids to walk on, or we're giving something smaller. And like, oh, but I can't give up this huge scholarship they're giving me. But you owe
Yeah.
$35,000.
Yeah.
and we only cost 16 to 17.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll choose to take that small scholarship because they're getting a scholarship and then they're paying more out of pocket. Like,
Yeah.
mind blown.
Yes.
Do you think they even realize that, or do you just think they're getting money thrown at them and it's
Yeah,
kind of like shiny new car?
exactly. Yep.
And you're right with what you're just saying there. And sometimes I've had them send me the award letter, and I'll look at it and I'll circle some of the things.
Mhm.
And they don't realize that some of these scholarship letters have their financial aid already in there, or like some of it has work study in there. Well, that's
Mhm.
not money they're giving you. You have to work for it
Yeah. Yep.
still. So you may only have $2,000 or $3,000 out of
Mhm.
pocket, but you have $13,000 in loans and $2,500 in
Mhm.
work study that you either have to work for or pay back.
Yep.
And but all they think is they got this huge giant scholarship,
Mhm.
and you're not giving me anything, or you're only giving me a little. And
Still
it's,
saving them money though, but they don't always see
yeah,
that.
yeah. And you're a 2 year and they're a 4 year. I've got to do this. And it's a forever battle, I think, but
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to get each individual um, person with a different mindset to understand why, what, how, as best we can.
And I think it's only going to get worse now because I think everyone's thinking, oh, NIL, you're paying me. Everyone, it doesn't matter what school I pick, you're paying me to come run for you. No.
And and you talked about, before we get on, you talked about the Vanderbilt guy. I have seen so many at least three posts in the last week and a half that are talking about just different things, recruiting wise or school wise. How am I going to get on a roster? Kids spending 8 years in college, all this different stuff. And then you read the comments, and they're just trashing JUCO. And I'm like, why? Like, why? Like, one time I texted Dee this morning. One talked about, it was this in Philippines. They're running a 4x1 on mud and dirt, and it was lined in grass and all this. And below it was like, this is what JUCO kids go through every day. And I'm like, no, no, why? Why do you? That's not a thing. And it's the same thing with what was the other one? It's
I
just,
didn't reply to you. Sorry, I was busy today. I
yeah.
was recruiting some kids. No.
Got you.
Gotta beat you next year.
Yep.
Well,
Anyway.
you mentioned something really important that I think a lot of people overlook, and that's thinking that you're getting a scholarship or financial benefit through a loan. And I'm 48, and I know people that are still paying student loans. And I don't think parents and students or athletes understand how that can stay with you for as long as it can. And I think that's the biggest thing is you want to come out of school with as little to no debt as possible so that you can live a good life. And I think that's from that financial perspective,
Mm.
that's a huge thing. There's also some other huge benefits that I think Jimmy and I both got to experience uh, from a 2 year going into a 4 year. One of them being, maybe your high school coach is doesn't help you with recruiting or doesn't have connections to talk to college coaches or does 10 other different things and he's just
Yeah.
doing that to get a paycheck. One of the big benefits I think is the opportunities that both of you can present with your connections. Maybe, hey, maybe you're a mid-level athlete but you work hard. Maybe you haven't
Mhm.
matured enough physically. You hit that stride. Now all of a sudden you're putting up those top times, and now you have someone who has connections at different schools, and you got different pipelines. You can help from a recruiting process. So I think maybe touch on some of those benefits and that aspect of the 2 year school as well.
So I'm going to talk about the loan thing real quick, if you don't
Yeah,
mind. Like,
absolutely.
I also want to make sure people understand loans are scary, but if it's a reasonable number, it does help you afford school, and you get a job and you make the payments, and it's fine. Like, I had about 25,000 left when I was done with college, and I made my payments and got it done. It's these loans that are 50 grand a year, you know, 45 to 60 grand a year that are killing kids. And it has some people. I don't know if D hears this sometimes. I'm sure he does, but that I can't have a loan. I can't have a loan.
I was waiting for you to finish. I was going to say the same thing. It's like, nope. Like, don't even want to hear the word. Nope. Can't, I'm not taking loans. Okay. How many people are lucky enough to have no loans through college? Like, there's not that many people. Come on.
It's just a matter of being reasonable, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so, recruiting wise, you're right with what you said, like the connections and all that. But the other piece I'd like to add to that, and then D can talk about the connections if he wants, is the free recruiting. We're going to meets. We're going to other colleges. We're going to other campuses.
Hmm.
And so we go to like Wichita State. We go to Wichita State and
Go
we run
Shockers.
there. The kids are going and yeah, the Shockers. And he's a JUCO guy, right? You get to run through their campus on your warm up. You get to see the athletes that they have there. Or you go to a meet and at this indoor a little bit more than outdoor just because we're a little bit more close. You get to see how coaches work with their athletes. This coach may be yelling at their kids, this coach may be coaching
Hmm.
differently than this coach. And so it's kind of free recruiting because when you go on these visits, coaches are best behavior, the kids best behavior. But then you go to a meet and you're competing against them and you see little intricacies of that, and that part is an extra that junior college offers as well, I think. And then obviously the connections, and D, go for it on that one.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing, and I don't want to give Mark all my secrets here, but essentially, we tell like we work hard to get you here, but we're working just as hard to get rid of you. Like we want you to move on from here and have a great experience because if that happens, I'm happy, you're happy, mom and dad are happy, and everyone you talk to hears that. So, like Mark said, going to these meets, you get a chance to see, oh, I'd be their number three triple jumper or their second, miler or whatever it is. You see their facilities. And so we tell them that, like, we don't just pick meets to pick meets, but we're also trying to spread things around and to get to different places, so they can see South Dakota State's indoor facility, Wichita State, like you said, or Arkansas or whatever it is. Like, let's get around because now there's other coaches seeing you. So not only are you seeing other coaches and seeing other facilities, those coaches see you. Whether that coach is there or not, maybe it's our national meet. If they're not there, they're definitely watching the results. And so we get home from a big meet, and of course, we're getting texts and emails and phone calls, when's he graduating? What's her major? What are his plans? And so we are there to help you out. And some of these kids, they don't need any help. They do it on their own. Some need a lot of hand holding. Some need a little. And so we can help them out and say, hey, thanks for your interest, but I know she really wants to stay, close to home in Nebraska. Or yeah, he wants to go south. You might be a good fit. He's looking for engineering. You got that? Perfect. So, we're like I said, we're trying to get you here, but we're also trying to help you find a good place. And I know Mark's talked about it before. We get coaches emailing us all the time, and he calls it a sophomore book. We have a list of all of our athletes that are graduating, their majors, their TFERS link, their contact information, and we're sending it out. If those kids want to be on that list, they let us know, and we send it out to every coach that inquires. So that way you can look and see exactly what we got and what they're doing and find out if they're a good fit. And you can go ahead and contact them and they can contact you. So,
And our JUCO indoor national meet is probably the most attended
yeah.
meet in the country by any coach. There's so many D1s, D2s, especially depending where we're at.
Mhm.
That indoor meet is jam packed with coaches.
I think you both verbalize a thought that I've had for years, and I never put it into words because I'm not recruiting, so I never had to. But you mentioned the invitationals in wrestling; they call them opens, and you have the ability to compete against every division, and you get to see the
Yep.
coaches. And I know I have a certain respect for certain divisions because how I performed against them. And when I was looking at colleges, I was like, well, I think I'll be an All American over here. It's going to be tough, or certain conferences and stuff. And I don't think kids think about that, where they just think they're going to junior college and there's 2 years that I'm not gonna get back.
Hmm.
But it's also, you guys mentioned a stepping stone. It is that stepping stone where you can kind of go see where you're gonna fit in, and you can do it way cheaper than paying some of those
Yeah.
hefty two,
Yep.
Division
For
One
sure.
bills.
Well, and you know, for D and I, at least for our programs, and like we said a couple times, every program's different, and we're very fortunate. The region meet and the national meet are the only two meets that we're
Mhm.
not running against D1 or
Yeah.
D2, probably all year. There isn't a time where we're not competing. Our indoor schedule, we're Iowa State, we're Nebraska, we're South Dakota State, we got Arkansas in there. We're going to these D1s and competing. And it's same thing for D. And not everybody's like that, but for the, everybody can. Track and
Right.
field doesn't, they don't have meets that are just not a lot anymore, where it's just D1 or just D2. Um, that's that isn't, regions nationals. The only time we're
Mhm.
only competing against JUCO. I
Yeah.
know we hear that a lot recruiting wise. Oh, but I want to compete against this school or that school. Well, we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad, Jimmy, you brought that up because it's common. They think like I'm going to go to a JUCO and I'm going to be off in this little bubble of a world and only compete against junior college athletes and waste my 2 years and now what? But yeah, we're like Mark said, we're competing against everybody all the time, so you can see exactly where you stack up against Wichita State, Iowa State, whoever it is. We're running against them or throwing or competing against them all every weekend. So
Not
And
only competing against them, but beating them. And that was from a junior college athlete and then a mid-major Division I school. That was like you're going into those events with a chip on your shoulder
mhm.
and you had something to prove,
Yeah.
whether it's from a recruiting perspective, like, hey, so and so from this university is here, I want to make an impression, or, oh, they think they're hot stuff because they have the newest Nike uniforms, and I'm in my Bill Rogers singlet, and I'm gonna roll up and show them what's up anyway, So there's that kind of thing, and I think it's important to point out, cross country, they kind of try to separate that a little bit, and they don't want that to happen, because of different back in the day
Ego.
and different
Oh.
things. But now in track and field, times are times. And if you have a fast mile or a fast 100 or a fast 50 or a long triple jump or whatever it is, you're going to get into that first flight, that first
Yeah.
heat, and you're going to roll with the Arkansas, the Texas, the
Mhm.
Villanovas or whoever it might be. So that's
Yeah.
that's important for people to know as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
and before we get into some of those myths on junior college, because Rich had touched on that a little bit, you mentioned three reasons to go to a junior college: cost, academics, and an athletic stepping stone. Those are three different student athletes. And you guys, Iowa Western and Iowa Central, are the top of the top. For anyone who's listening to this that doesn't know anything about junior college, you guys are good in all your sports across the board, and it's pretty much like going to a Division I school for someone who's not familiar with either college. How do you navigate those three different student athletes, whether it be, hey, this dude's Division I caliber, but he just their parents doesn't have the money, or hey, he's one of the best. He can be an Olympian, but he can't pass clearinghouse. Or you have D. You mentioned just this local kid from Fort Dodge. I want to
Mhm.
see if they can do it. Now, all those kids on the team together, that's a totally different mindset. Some guys, hey, I'm just here because I want to be part of the team, and then there's other people that are ready to kill someone for a scholarship. So how do you navigate those three different
I, I'm
personalities?
gonna it's I'm gonna say it's not a problem because they all have one thing in common. They all are choosing to be there. Now, maybe some of them would rather choose something else because yeah, that's sometimes that's the case where this is my only option. I have to do it. At some point, hopefully, after the resignation phase is over, they buy into it, but they all want to be there. But I will liken it to, and I know Mark talked about it because yeah, I did watch his podcast. I was looking for some secrets. I didn't get anything, but I did listen, just so you know. With our international students, the diversity of our team, it's the same thing. Doesn't matter, and that's what I love about it. I love the diversity our team has, whether it's where you're from, your economic status, big city, farm kid. I love all of it. And so whatever your reason of those three reasons, it's great because it adds to the diversity of who we are. And I often tell our kids around those first couple campfires, the best thing you can do sometimes is just to close your mouth and open your ears because while we may be worlds apart and different in so many ways, there's some things that we're very similar in, and we all want to do the same thing. We all have the same goals. We ended up here in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. there's worse places to be, but hey, let's make the best of it and let's go after it together. So
It's real
there,
life. Like, right, like our diversity is real life because all ages, all around the world, all countries, all backgrounds, and academic levels, and it's you have to learn how. I think one of the tougher conversations, I think, for me is learning the different personalities
Mhm.
and understanding how to deal with those personalities and helping those kids along the way trying to navigate that. That's been a tough one, I think. And Dee does it. I do it. We have a cross country camp right off the bat, and at least on the distance side right off the bat, we knock out a lot of that awkwardness right off the
Yeah.
bat. But yeah,
And I just want to add one more thing because it was new for me and it's like 21 years, what's going to change? But the diversity part, we had our first deaf student on the team this year and it was awesome. And I was scared all summer. I was just like, how is this going to work? I was just nervous, anxious, how's he going to fit in? Is the team going to be welcoming and pull him in? It's been awesome. Now I was fortunate. Even my wife was a sign language interpreter back in the day. So even knowing that, like I was still nervous and anxious and I don't listen, so I don't know a lot of sign language previous to this year. But every Monday night after team meetings, she would come to our team meeting and basically have like a 30-minute ASL lesson. And some of those kids, some didn't pay attention, like anything else, but some of it ate it up. And it was awesome. So we were at Olive Garden one night and we're not sitting at one big table because like I want to eat within the first hour and a half, not 3 hours, so sit us wherever you can kind of thing. And there was one seat open at this table where the student was with some of our other guys, and it was the best meal I've had in years. And you know, we do a lot of texting and sharing messages on the phone, but yet teaching each other signs and the things that I was watching my students, my previous students, what they've learned and how they've communicated with him, and some inside jokes I had to go back home and ask my wife, hey, what does this mean? And what does this mean? You know, yeah, you can imagine. But anyway, like that was awesome. I loved it. And so there's so many ways our teams are diverse and I love every bit of it. Big tangent, sorry.
No, it's
No,
great.
we love it, and you mentioned the common reason why they're all there, and that's kind of what they can kind of click on. They're all there for that common goal.
Hmm.
What do you guys see is one of the biggest reasons across the board why someone might not make it at the junior college level?
the first couple weeks, the first 2 or 3 months, it is it's all college. It's not just junior college, but it's those first couple months are hard and they're messy, and being able to navigate that and listen, Dee said it, I think, just listening and taking on the time management part and taking on the help that's given and understanding, yes, it's your first time away from home. It's your first time, having to turn school, you're turning schoolwork in at different times. It's online, or you got to eat on your own. You got to go to bed on your own. I don't think that's just junior college, but that is just probably, in my opinion, the hardest part of school in general. And for me, and I think Dee does a pretty good job too, is we allow that growth. I think junior college helps with that too, because you can. So I used to coach 4 year, and I had kids from D run for me, and D and I talk about it, and I used to think the reason they were improving so much was because D and I's training matched so well. And now I coach junior college, and I see, yeah, that's true, but the bigger part is these kids have this messy freshman year, and it kind of follows you because it's there, right? Whether it follows you GPA wise or friendship wise, relationship wise, stuff like that. But then you leave the junior college because you graduated and you move on, and that messiness stays there. And you move on to this new school with this new maturity, and you take on that role of leadership, and they just take off. I have so many kids that have moved on to 4 year, and they're the number one runner or number two runner, and they're just loving life and doing amazing. I had a kid that I don't know that he went to bed before 1 a.m. this whole time here. And now he's going to bed. I talked to him the other day. He's like, I'm going to bed. And I was like, it's 9 o'clock. He's like, yeah, I go to bed at 9:30 every night now, coach. He would have never done that here. Never. So that maturity is been a huge. I don't know, D, go for it.
Everything Mark said is exactly right, but I think it also boils down to if you're not open to change or willing to adapt, that's what's going to close those doors for you and seal your fate essentially. Like you can't come in, in that tunnel or thinking this is going to be just like it was at home or at my last school. Like you got to be able to, everywhere's different. And the same thing as our kids graduate from us and go to other coaches, and go ahead and call me and complain, but I'm going to tell you, hey, be open-minded. Like just because we did it this way and your new coach is doing it this way, that doesn't mean it's wrong. I didn't remember when you got here, you didn't like me, or I didn't do it the same way your high school coach did. You just got to be open to that change and willing to listen because there's many ways to get it right, but you have to be able to buy into that and keep a positive mindset. So
in everything we just said is exactly why the transfer portal is flooded with the crazy amount of kids that are trying to leave as freshmen because they blame everything on everybody but them because they're still really young and they don't understand. And then they go to that other school and it's the exact same. It's the exact same, but they have this different listening going on and different maturity because really that first year is tough and it's hard. And the maturity that happens between 18 and 20 is I see it. Like I don't know about D when you see it, but I feel like right as indoors ending their sophomore year,
yeah.
there's just this difference from when they got here. It's
Mhm.
unreal with some of them, the ones that have opened up and really
Yeah.
taken it on and got out of that tunnel. Um, yeah,
Yeah, you have to be willing to confront your issues and fix them. You can't run from everything. You run, it's going to follow you most likely. So it doesn't matter what it is and who you are.
You got to run into the storm, not away from the storm,
There you
right,
go.
Jim?
Yeah.
Like a buffalo.
Well, just for Eddie and Richard, I didn't know you got a question, but just for any kids listening, just know that I am 37 and I'm realizing that I was wrong. Back at some of those schools I didn't make it at, and it took me, so many years after that. So just realize you're probably wrong.
And it's good to say, and it's tough because I see it all the time, and it frustrates me when I know a student is making a poor decision, whether it's something they're doing with me or leaving me for the wrong reason, and I can't talk them out of it, and you got to learn the hard way sometimes. Some of those kids know, but some of those kids you got to learn the hard way. It's unfortunate and it sucks, but when they do learn, even if it's 37 sooner or later, when they do learn, like it's rewarding. I had a kid like in my first 3 years, I can't remember what year it was, but I kicked him off the team. He just had so many different issues, and he came back like 4 years later with all of his gear, came into my office, apologized, paid me some money for something. I don't remember what happened, but like he was just, Coach, thank you. The best thing you could have done for me was kicking me off the team. And it hurt because I liked the kid. Like I really genuinely liked him as a person, but he was just making decisions that weren't good for him, but they weren't good for the team either. And that was the worst part. But it's rewarding when they do figure it out. And I hope that they all do figure it out at some point. So
Sooner than later, too.
yeah,
yeah.
before 37, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, I'm curious. So you bring up the transfer portal, and when we got rolling, I wrote something down because I think it's something again that Jimmy and I are aware of, but I think maybe sometimes kids aren't aware of it as well. But how much does um, transfer of credits come into decision making for students to go from your institutions to a four-year institution? Is that something that comes in? Because I know like I lost some credits here or there, and I know Jimmy it's always a battle where you're going back and forth. It's like it's the same thing. It's just called something different here. Why
Yeah.
can't is that something that comes into play with
Mark,
kids?
let me answer and then you go ahead because I feel like, in my opinion, it used to be a bigger problem, and I feel like it's much better now. Like I know for sure within the state of Iowa, I don't know how many years ago, but we came to a common course numbering system for all community colleges in Iowa, which is great. Even though you call public speaking, I call it speech. It's got the same number, so we know what it is. So when you're transferring within community colleges, zero issues whatsoever. And every now and then there are problems, but it's typically when kids are changing majors and changing degree programs or doing something completely different when then this isn't going to transfer correctly. But I really, again, in my opinion, I think it's much better now, and I don't hear near as many issues. Mark, maybe it's different for you, but
I agree with everything he
yeah,
said, and I'm guessing maybe with the Iowa thing, not with Iowa, but different schools, different issues. With us in Iowa Central, we have so many athletes that are going on to levels all over
right.
the country. It just isn't an issue with us
Yeah,
for the most part. The change in the majors and things like that cause a couple different things, but I don't. I haven't heard of any issues
yeah,
really with us with the transferring of credits. And you may have like if you came here and you did something extremely specific
right.
and you're going on to that 4 year that's extremely specific, there may be something that they want that you
Yeah,
think you already took, but they just want it their way.
yeah.
Um,
And we have a lot of kids, like our admissions reps are really good if you know where you want to go before your last semester. So let's say I'm starting my sophomore year, I'm getting ready to enroll for my last semester, and I know I want to go to Iowa State. Well, I should pick something out of state, like I'm going to go to Texas Tech. Our admissions reps will call Texas Tech and say, "Hey, for your humanities, do you prefer this or this?" Or for math, that's a big one. Do you prefer stats or this class? So that way our students are going to take the class that's more appropriate for if they know the school they want, which is good.
Because
But
there are a couple different conference rules. The SEC has you have to transfer from the school. Oh, you have to graduate from the school or something. What's the SEC rule, D? Do you know that one that
I
I'm
think
trying
you're
to talk
making
about?
stuff up. I don't know.
I'm not making it up.
Is that
There's a
from like a
couple
4 year to a
SEC,
2 year back to a 4 year? You have to
yeah,
graduate from the 2 year.
something like that. Yeah, the SEC has a couple different things, and like he said, the math. There's some different conferences
Hmm.
that like college algebra than they more than stats.
Right.
Um, but those are simpler things than others.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's a summer class. You take the summer class, a different one to make up for that. But I don't feel like if anything, it's like one or two classes, except one year I had a student who he was a not a didn't like book classes, he was in our welding program, wasn't planning to do anything beyond Iowa Central. He's going to go 2 years, play the offensive line for football and get a job. Well, dang it, we started a track and field program and he was a 59-foot shot putter. So he came out and started throwing the hammer and he ended up being second in the nation and got a huge scholarship to Wyoming. So now, luckily, he was a local kid. So he had some credit banked before he started, but now he's like hammering out 18 or 19 credits a semester his last year in summer classes to get all of his, gen eds done for his AA program so he can get a transferable degree to move on. But,
Yeah, because
you know,
the NCAA doesn't recognize the vocal stuff, the welding and
Hmm,
the just the different ones like that.
interesting.
And
And
that's sometimes that's a conversation we have to have on the
yep,
front end. Like, oh, I
I was
want to
about to say that.
major in construction,
Yep.
Well, you can do that, but you're not going to be able to transfer with that degree. So
Or maybe you pick up some electives of some of the core classes while you're doing that
yeah,
degree.
yep.
Pick up the English, pick up the science. I was about to say the exact same thing. Having that conversation right off the
Hmm.
bat, the beginning.
So, what are some of the biggest myths and fallacies when it comes to division? Well, up, sorry, 4 year versus junior college 2 year.
Well, we spoke on it with the Vanderbilt guy. They think they're losing their eligibility. You losing years, or which it is what it is. You're spending 2 years here if you spend the 2 years, and then you have 5 years to get 4 years in, right, D?
Mhm.
And so if you spend 2 years here, you have 2 years left. If you spend 1 year here, you have 3 years left. Sounds like that's all going to change. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But so that tends to be something. I'm too smart for JUCO.
Mhm.
That comes up.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And it's just not a thing. Everywhere you go has pretty much the exact same gen ed requirements in the first 2 years.
And we have plenty of valedictorians at our school.
Yep.
So the people say that it drives me nuts. Like,
Yeah.
no
We
such thing. I don't care what your GPA is or was.
exactly, like we had a guy come here that wanted to be a chiropractor. He had a plan. He knew what he wanted to do, where he was going to go after to do all that. He came here to get the baselines in, took some extra AP bio classes and science classes to knock out some of those here. So and then he went on and he didn't end up being a chiropractor, but that's because he changed his complete career path. But that it was going to be fine,
Mhm.
easy. And Dee can speak on that part too more, but the too smart part seems to be a thing. Too talented,
Yeah.
that seems to be a myth
Yep.
in there too, which I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we get
Because you're going to
going.
get inferior coaching, inferior
Yes.
facilities, inferior education.
Training partners,
Yeah.
training and competition. We already
Garbage.
talked about that part a little bit. Um, yeah,
Because we even, we had this conversation with the Iowa Track Coaches Clinic, and it's the same. Mark kind of had this analogy when you look at, we have four classes in Iowa: 4A, 3A, 2A, 1A. Just because you're 4A in a large school, does that mean you're a better coach than a 1A coach? No, it has nothing to do with, same thing with NCAA. You're going to have good coaches, bad coaches. And yes, there could be NJCAA coaches that are better than, Division One's coaches. That can happen. It doesn't matter who you are. It just happens that I'm here because this is a good fit for me. Mark's there because that's a good fit for him. And, he's there because that's a good fit for him. So all myths, and there's
yeah.
just like we said, the haves and the have nots. You're going to have NCAA Division One schools that lack facilities altogether. Same thing with junior college. You're going to have some that have, Mark has an outdoor track right outside the back door on his campus. There's plenty of any schools that don't have a track on their campus. So all
and
myths.
and we can all him and I can name off a couple names for you. Nikisha Price. Nikisha Price is a JUCO graduate. She ran the top 400 time in the world, going in all the way up to I think the semifinals of the Olympics. She won the NCAAs. Kenny Benerick, Olympian. We had a jumper, Olympian. He had a guy in the
Courtney
200,
Lindsay. Yep.
Courtney Lindsay, Olympian. And it just those and Hilda, who's just finished third at NCAA cross country, she went here. He had the girl from Israel, um,
Adva Cohen.
Adva. She's running pro. You have all these different kids that came here. So that talent level conversation is just
Not a conversation.
Bia was from Sioux City,
Yep. Habibia Simbasa. Yep.
and now
And he's
he's run.
still older than all of us. No, I don't know. He's not older than me, but he's still going strong. Like he's still killing it in road racing. So
Yeah, and it's just the that myth part of it, that one and the academic one are the two that just drive us both crazy.
mhm.
Um, just anyway, yeah.
How do you not take that personal or tell them they're full poo? Like how do you handle that and not throw a shoe at someone?
Okay, there's some coaches that will. Now, if you're a good coach, I shouldn't say good, mature, if you're a mature person, because personally for me, and I remind all of my assistants this all the time, because I also want to remind the athletes too, never burn bridges. Never burn bridge because that recruit that just told you no today might be calling you in January when something didn't go well, or in June and July when something didn't go well. So I might not agree with it. Hey, I wish you the best of luck. I hope things work out. If anything changes, let me know.
And I would
Be,
say, and D and I, Dee and I are pretty good with that. I'd say, I'm friendly with his kids. He's friendly with my kids because we probably recruited all of them
Right.
between the two of us. But it's not even just that. Like, you may have that kid may be a coach one day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're calling you with an athlete.
Hmm.
Um, I've had that. I've had, not even they're not even coaches. They just know somebody down the road
Yep.
that, hey, they may realize they wish they would have went to Iowa Western, Iowa Central. They
Mhm.
didn't. They made that decision. But you had a friendly conversation with them. You hit something with them, and they're like, "Hey, I so and so is from my hometown. You should call him," or
Mhm.
something like that. That happens too.
Because while it's, we're competitive and we want to beat each other, I think the great thing about Mark and I, and again, can't speak for anybody else, is we just want kids to be successful. Do I want my kids to be a little more successful on the track or the classroom? Sure, maybe, but I want them all to be successful. So like a great example, and I don't know if this was what Mark was hinting at, but one of my former athletes, he had a
Oh,
friend. I didn't have money for that person at the
I
time.
didn't want to bring that up.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, because that's what it is. We're helping him out. So, hey, I don't have money. Give Mark a call. Hey, Mark has money for this kid. He can help her out. Perfect. That's one person we helped out. And I have this other kid that I recruited really, really hard out of, I don't remember, Oregon or something. And I really, really wanted him here, and it didn't work out. We couldn't make it work. I said, hey, you should try this school. It's a little closer to you. I think that might be a good fit to at least get you to the next step, whatever that is for you. And he did. And we talked often during his 2 years there. And even since then, he emails me, calls me, hey, coach, I got this kid, or hey, coach, thanks for this. And that's what it's about. We're just trying to help people out. And people often ask me, hey, why are you still coaching in junior college? I like it. I mean, I have great administration, and that's a huge part of it. But at the same time, I feel like I can help the most people here. If there was a great opportunity somewhere else, may I look at it? Sure, but I can help people, and that's why I'm in it. I'm in it for that to help people out. Winning's a great byproduct, of course, but beating Mark is awesome too. It helps me sleep at night, but helping these kids out to be successful, and too many times they want to define success by that place they got. And they got to remind them that's not what it's about, because I tell them all the time, like, hey, it's great if you were a national champion, but when you failed out of school, your highlight for you was that one moment in time, because I don't care. Mom and dad don't care. They're mad. Are you going to get a job? Hey, I got a national title. Nobody cares, man. You had that one great race, but you didn't do your job. Your job was to go to school and graduate so you can be successful with other things. And so just preaching that, because there's plenty of schools, doesn't matter what affiliation or division, where they're just looking for the point scorers, and while that's great, but you need to help these kids get to what their end game is. Sometimes you even need to tell them or show them or open their eyes to what the end game is. The end game isn't just running a sub 4 mile. Like, hey, that's awesome, but there's other things. I might be your track and cross country coach, but that's the fun stuff. That's the icing on the cake. I need you to be successful by going to class every day, by being a good teammate, being a hard worker, a person of good character. That's what's going to take you far. You're not going to get that dream job and live the life you want because you were fast. That's 1% of us, though. That's the extremely fortunate people, those Olympians. And there's not many because, that's the elite of the elite.
Curious from a recruiting perspective, we talked about the international students coach. You mentioned a student athlete from Oregon. We also talked about how community colleges in the Midwest and Kansas and Iowa and those places has a little bit different. How do you balance the recruiting and where do you put your energies and how does that all, I mean, how does that all work for you?
It's it's interesting. Dee and I do pretty similar thing. We have pretty large rosters, and then we're also trying to compete at the national level, and that is a very diverse roster when trying to accomplish both of those things. And so it's For me, I've always recruited large rosters, so my energy's everywhere. And it just always has been. I I try not to let that slow. I'm everywhere, and my energy is the same for every person, whether it be the 13:35K from wherever to the 19-minute, from wherever. My energy is the same everywhere, and I don't know that I do balance. I don't know that I put one in more in the other. It's balanced across the board.
I'm going to answer your question by not answering your question. Okay.
Hey,
So the hardest, being married to a cross country and track coach is
yeah,
the hardest job for any spouse. Like it's, you have to have a completely forgiving and understanding spouse to make that work because we are gone year round. And then the other piece of that, which kind of ties in, is I envy every other sport that has an off season.
Mm,
You know, I see them sitting in their offices with nothing to do. What? What is that all about?
mm.
You come in later because you got nothing to do. What? Dude, I got these people right now, these fall sport coaches, in Fort Dodge wrapping up their season and doing their end of the year reports. And like, I wish I had time for that, but I got another season starting and two more national championships to prepare for before the end of the school year. So
or two region titles to prepare to lose to.
yeah, like
Yeah,
we,
lose.
I'm not worried about that. So we're fine, but it's exhausting, but at the
Actually,
same
it's four
time,
because it's men's and women's, right?
true that. But it's a hard job and you have to have the energy to do like you have to be built for it because if you will find out right away if you're not cut out for this job.
And what you said, Rich, it's eight.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
men, women cross,
Yeah.
men, women half marathon, men and women indoor,
Mm.
men and women outdoor.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
So I'm curious, with the successful programs that you have, does recruiting get easier? Do you find more athletes are reaching out to you? Or are you still out there?
I think it did at some point, but it's changed. It's completely different than it was. Like you used to be able to call a kid on a telephone and they would answer your phone call
Yep.
and have a conversation for like an hour. I don't know what that is anymore. You can't call kids. You can't call anybody,
They
right?
don't
You
pick
can't
up.
call your best friend unless you text them first. Like,
Is it all texting?
yes, like
Yes.
They don't
Or
everything's
if
pick
you're
up.
different.
D, it's an email. D
Yeah,
emails
or
me now.
oh my
He
God, my
doesn't even
email.
text me anymore. He just
Uh,
emails me.
I feel like everybody that I work with or for has a folder with my name on it so they can just shuffle my emails in there because they get so many of them at any hour of the day. But yeah,
Kids don't pick up the phone.
right.
Hmm.
But I think yes, to some degree, like with the success, we do get referrals. That does happen. Yes, we those local or area or the four-year schools that we frequent will help us out and send us kids if it doesn't work for them or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, I think the recruiting landscape has changed so tremendously that yeah, I mean,
And,
in order for us to do what we do, kind of back to that last question, and then to this question is got to have a good staff. Like
Yeah.
if you don't have assistants that are willing to do that work, you can't be successful because there's no way I could do it on my own. I kind of did my first couple of years, but that was just, I got the program started from nothing, and so there's nowhere to go but up, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of hard work, so it wasn't like simple, but at the same time, to maintain that, I had to have people to help me do that.
and it's a lot of planning because we're rotating kids in and out every other year, every year,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And you
and
don't
so,
pl yeah, you don't plan for 2 years.
yeah.
It's great if you get a kid for 2 years, but
And so
maybe
recruiting wise for us, we not just like the other sports get the off season, but the 4-year schools, there's kind of a little lull, maybe a little lull in there. Oh, I had a really big freshman class.
right,
Next
right.
year,
So I
maybe
only
it's
need
not as
three
big.
kids. No,
Yeah,
I still need a
we're
hundred more this year.
yeah, we're rotating through every year.
Yeah.
And so that's challenging as well.
And so are there no roster caps for y'all?
Nope,
No.
Nope.
No.
nope.
And it's funny because like you look at us where we're not very, we are numbers driven. In order for us to have our jobs and have our assistants and have our budgets, we have to bring in a certain number of athletes, so we're both over 100 athletes per year for track and field. Whereas you look at some of the Kansas schools, uh, at least how it used to be when before things have kind of gone berserk now, but you would have 30 letters of intent for track and field and cross country. They would have 30 kids, because they just have one kid for each letter of intent essentially. But we're bringing all of them in.
And we didn't talk about that. So with cross country, we're allowed 10 scholarships, and that's it. That's
And
the limit.
scholarship spots, not to say we can
Scholarship spot,
fund
yeah,
them, but
scholarship spots. And then track, we're allowed 20. And then each school will have their budget, so maybe you could give $1,000 for every one of those, or maybe you up and down, change, whatnot, depending on your budget.
Okay.
yeah. So like a Kansas school, they might say, hey, we got 30 scholarships between track and cross country, and they're all worth the same amount. Whereas Iowa Central has, X number of dollars, and Iowa Western has Y number of dollars. Fund those 30 however you want. So
Okay.
Rich gonna show our age again, but could you imagine a college coach calling you and not picking up the phone?
No, I can remember getting like, hey, there's so and so's on the phone, and you're like getting out of the shower,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
let me get on this.
And now
You know
kids think it's okay to ghost you.
how rare it is that they pick up the phone if I don't text and set up the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And even then I can
That's
set up
not a
the time.
guarantee. Yeah,
Yeah, it's wild.
yeah.
I
Well,
and I talk about it with my friends, like my, not just Dee, but Cody, my other coaching friend.
You have another friend?
Hey now.
Ooh.
And we're like, I want to talk to these kids more because I find myself texting too much, but they don't pick up the phone. Like,
Oh, I
hey, I'm
hate
gonna
it.
call today. I'm gonna call today. And I call like 10 kids, one kid picked up, or no one picked up.
Uh-huh.
It's yeah.
well, you
Rich,
talk about the ghosting too, and that's like that was part of growing up and like being a man or learning to be a man is like, hey, I really appreciate your time and effort, but I think I'm gonna go here, or having that difficult conversation, learning how to have difficult conversations. Like now you just be like, well, block, or, I'm not
Yeah.
answering that, or I'm not responding to that.
So let me
I
tell you
know
my
I know
public
that's
service
Dee's pet
announcement.
peeve.
Yes, it is. I hate it. Like whatever, because kids say, "Oh, treat me like an adult. I'm an adult." Well, then act like an adult and take the adult consequences. But I tell these kids all the time, whether I'm in the top three of their list or the 100th one, don't be afraid to say no. That's my biggest thing I can tell any athlete listening right now. We hear no 90+% of the time. That's part of our job. I'd rather you tell me no right now than ghost me or lead me on for 1, 3 months when you're now wasting both of our time.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me no, I'll wish you the best of luck. Maybe I have a tear or two, but I'll wish you the best of luck and I'll move on to the next kid on the list. And you don't have to worry about me blowing up your phone and you can go focus on whoever or whatever's next for you.
And I get it to a point. Like, not everyone's like D and I. Like, hey, good luck,
True.
congrats. If something changes, let me know. There are some that'll get angry and
Yes,
they'll,
Yeah.
true.
they'll yell at a kid or say something stupid.
Yeah.
At the most, I'm saying, hey, I'm just curious why, just so I can learn from,
Yes.
from the
Yeah. Feedback.
I'd
conversation
love to hear that.
and,
Yes.
and understand what I can do better. But there are some that aren't that way, and that's unfortunate, and that makes it tough. But the ghosting part, oh my gosh, it would save me so much time if I you just tell me it's no big deal.
Hmm.
I'll move on to the next.
Yep. Oh, I didn't pay my phone bill, so I couldn't text you for the last 3 months. Oh, okay, sure.
And they have it on like the do not disturb thing. They have that on, and so they don't even see it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the communication part's it's tough all across the board. Like,
Yeah.
coaches will say, "Hey, email. Here's the email." Okay, they don't check their emails.
No,
I
not at
had
all.
a kid. I
Yeah.
had a kid
They don't know
commit
what email
here.
is.
Yeah.
He committed here. He came here, and we're talking like middle of fall about the recruiting process. He's like, "Yeah, coach, I just saw that you emailed me the other day. Like, I emailed you last like a year
Yeah.
ago, big guy.
Yeah.
Like, what do
Yeah.
you mean?"
Yeah.
He's
You
like,
got to force them
I
into
never
email.
checked it.
Yep.
And so coaches are like, I can't give you the cell phone. I'll give you the email. And I'll respond. I was like, coach, they're not going to look at it.
Yeah.
That's
No
not
problem.
like, how do we do this better? And so there's that too.
so you mentioned kind of, hey, they don't check their emails and just kind of some adult things that the kids have to do. How much do you kind of say, am I your parent? Like, am I like becoming your parent? Like, how much parenting is involved in being a junior college coach?
I think I think within the first couple weeks or maybe the first week, you start to figure out who those kids are and who needs more than other. I say it this way, I'm going to treat everybody fairly, but I'm not going to treat everybody the same. And I said that right, right? Yeah. And
Oh.
I get it up backwards, but it's the facts that some people need more of that than others. And I think we are. I think that we are an extended parent. If you're doing your job the right way as a coach, that is a part of being a coach. For me, at least, I'm not just talking about the X's and O's. If they want to have that conversation, a deeper conversation about life, and want my 2 cents or my experiences, I'm here to give that and here to help and here to get through those things. And I don't, Dee can maybe speak on this a little. I think that those that want to talk and
Mhm.
want to be
Yeah.
around and want to have those conversations are usually probably the ones that we're closer to coaching wise.
Mhm.
Um, because we're learning more. It's not because I don't like this other kid or whatnot. And I think that sometimes happens that way. Oh, you like so and so better. It's just the conversations and
Mhm.
the relationship and the family side of it. Him and I are lucky where we have a group of about 7 or 8 kids that he coached and then I coached after him. That like we went to Jeremiah's wedding, babies or all that different stuff that we're really super close to that we were probably parents to, kind of.
And even kids, that come from further away, they need more assistance. When I tell them like, I can be stepdad, favorite step uncle, whatever it is you need, like that's the role I'm going to fill for you. Or it doesn't matter. Some of the kids that come from, Iowa, maybe they just didn't have that at home. And so they still need that. And so if you need that, I'm going to try to fill that. But I also tell them, because we talked about our preseason training camp, we take all of our cross country kids to camp. I bring my family with me on purpose. I bring my whole coaching staff on purpose. So you can see, because a big part of the goal is for me to learn who you are and how you interact and what you need from me. But I want you to see how I interact with our coaches. I want you to see how I treat my children because I'm going to treat you kind of like Mark said. I'm going to treat you the same way. I'm going to treat you fairly. Might not be the same as everybody else, but you see how I treat my small children or my adult children that I have as well. I'm going to treat you just like that. So I'm not going to make exceptions and treat you this way or that way. Like you're going to get it as fair as I can, and I'm going to try to lead you all down the same path, I guess. So.
So, one thing that Rich said that he ran Division III junior college, and one thing I noticed when I was 9 years old and we were at Alfred State for the national championships is that Division I and Division II junior college was all international students. That's what I perceived as a little kid. And we grew up in a
Mhm.
household that were track geeks. So me just seeing Kenyans, I was getting their autographs. Like I didn't know who they were, but I was like, oh, Kenyan, I gotta get his
Mhm.
autograph. What is the difference between American athletes and international athletes?
You start.
I know your answer, but um, I was going to kind of come back to one thing though you said was I think it's kind of gone in this wave where it was large majority international, and then we had some rule changes where it limited the number of international students, and so all of a sudden there was hardly any, and now there's just this huge influx since COVID, essentially, where the gates have opened, and it's just a large group of international students that are kind of dominating. But I'll segue, Mark. It's a lot easier sometimes to get that international student and that domestic student. Take it away, Mark.
What he's saying is the recruiting process. The example I used at the Iowa one, I had a girl that I found on Instagram. She followed me. I followed her back. She messaged me. 10 minutes later, she was signed to come here. And that's all it took. And she runs 17:10 in the 5K. And I don't say that to brag about her or anything. I'm just saying, for example, I can't find if I went to Iowa and I found a 17:10 girl, I would probably have to start talking to her in 8th grade and would have to go visit her home every other week and go
Yeah.
see her family and go to
Yep.
Christmases and just to get her to come see my campus.
Yeah.
And for her to tell me no because she's got 25 other letter of
Mhm.
intent offers and she's he or she's hit up Twitter and said I've got this and that. It's just that part. Now on the back end, there's some issues that are tough, like with the embassies and getting visas and getting denied, and that part of it's a whole nother ball of wax. There's a lot of tough things there, but Americans sometimes, like we've talked about already, with the myths and all that, the international kids don't care.
Yep.
They don't care. They just want an opportunity.
Mhm. They don't need as
And
much coddling to
yep.
ego
And
stroking, whatever it is to get them to come
my
look.
international kids, all great students.
Hmm.
They're going to class. They don't want to lose
Yep.
that opportunity.
Exactly.
They don't want to go back home and say all this
Exactly.
money I spent from the whole
Rarely
village.
is it the international student you have to worry about in the classroom.
Yeah.
Very rare.
And it just so happens they all because they care, they also are
Hmm.
very good runners because they
Yep.
care.
Yep. They're
And,
not taking
and
that opportunity for granted. They
yeah,
are busting their butt in
yep.
all ways.
Now if I could have 20 Iowa kids that worked their butt off, wanted to be good, wanted to do this, wanted to do that, and we go up to nationals, do our thing, and they wanted to be here,
Hmm.
sweet, sign me up.
Yep. Yep.
Sign me up. But the what Galen Ruffs or whoever we want to talk about, the Parker Valbys, they're
Rich
not
Airey.
they're
Yeah.
not looking
All
at it
those
as seriously. Who'd you say?
Rich.
No.
He had to go. He had to stay out east. He didn't want
Yes, he had to stay out east, D3 cross.
It's interesting you say that because we talked to Coach Dominic and Coach Van Leer from Wingate, and we've also had some athletes from Wingate and also from the University of the Cumberlands. And from a coaching perspective, they say, the international kids, like they just see that there's 10 guys on the roster that can run under 14:10, and that's going to get me to run fast. Whereas the
Yeah.
American guy doesn't is just sees, well, that's a D2 school. They
Yeah.
don't see
Yep.
like that's an opportunity to run
Yep.
fast. And on the
Yep.
from an athletic perspective, we talked to Eddie Van Week from Cumberland's, and he's like, this is an opportunity. I cannot blow this opportunity. I need to go to class. I can't be partying. Like if I
Hmm.
get in trouble, I could lose my scholarship, and then I'm going back to South Africa.
Yep.
So just
Exactly.
And
anecdotal.
so many look, lately I've had conversations where, there's obviously other coaches out there that are recruiting against us. Oh, the whole team's international, or all these internationals, not Americans. Da, 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 da. Dee talked about it a little bit earlier. We talked about with the eating part, the diversity. They're looking at it completely wrong.
Hmm.
If you look at it in a sense of real world experience,
Yeah.
the understanding different people from different worlds, being around it, different food, different aspects. But then look at the competition side of it. You know, our kids will go run with those kids. They'll train with those kids. The
Hmm.
the, the American kids, you come Geo, we'll use Geo as an example. So and so from Minnesota may go with a long run with him. Well, you
Hmm.
just ran a 15-mile long run with a 13:30 guy. Now all of a sudden the expectation level grows on what you think you can do because you see they're just normal people. They're
Hmm.
just another guy getting a run in.
Yep.
And if I go out and get that run in, maybe I can be that, but be that. The expectation level has grown at both schools because of those international kids and their determination, their dedication, their want on that opportunity. And but it's not looked at that they don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're just having a lot of internationals. You're not coaching, you're babysitting. That's not
I have
not
115 athletes on my track and field roster as of today, which can change tomorrow, but as of right now. And so of that 115, I would say maybe 30 of them are international at most. I don't even know if it's that many, but
Right, same
that's a small
percentage here,
percentage.
probably.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, same
And
percentage here, probably.
yeah, iron sharpens iron. Like you said, I like Jimmy was saying, he was enamored with, seeing all the Kenyans. I think
mhm.
Cleopas Boer was one of the guys he ended up running at Nebraska. But I would again look at it as, well, that's a 1330 guy. Some of that's going to rub off on me.
Yeah.
Maybe then I'm a 1430 guy, and that's
Yep.
still pretty darn
Right.
good.
Yeah, PR is a PR, right?
That's
Like
right.
if you come here and you're a 5 minute miler and you leave here 4:30, you have a completely different set of
Yeah.
schools you're looking at now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whether you made nationals or were an All-American or were part of that top 7 cross country team, does it like, did you run 4:30? Did you get a scholarship at that D2 school? And you didn't make nationals? Does it matter? What was your goal? Your goal is to get better and go to a different school, a better school, and get scholarship money out of it, right? Well, you reach those goals. Okay, I'm sorry there were 8 other kids in front of you in the,
Hmm.
or 3 other kids in
Yep.
front of you in the mile, but those 3 other kids helped you get to 4:30, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And it's funny because we try to be as inclusive as we can with everything. And so people will ask me, and I'll kind of talk backwards here, did that bother you? And I'm like, no. So we've been making some posts, featuring some athletes every Tuesday and Wednesday. And we have kids that will post pictures of them because they were on a national championship team. And they could have been the 30th guy of 35, but and so people, well, he wasn't your varsity. Doesn't that bother you? No, he felt like he was part of it. He's part of it then. I don't care that he didn't run a single lick of a varsity, top 7 ever in his life, but he trained with those guys every single day or ran with those girls every single day, lived with them, ate with them, hung out with them. Who knows what he or she contributed to that team? Because I
Yep.
tell all of them that all the time. Because I was that 35th guy of 35 through high school and college. We all have a different way to contribute. There's always something, maybe you're the worst runner on the team, but you're passionate or you're a vocal leader or you're just a hard worker and people see that you're never cutting corners. So yeah, maybe he didn't directly impact the score because he ran a certain time, but he was a part of that team and he impacted that team for sure. And
And then
every
we
single guy ahead of him would agree with that.
and we offer a unique opportunity with the half marathon. And
Yep.
so the half marathon is a national championship event for the NJCAA. And they score just like cross. Top 3 are your scorers, 4 and 5 are your pushers, but then you can run as many as you want. And so, we won the men's side. We ran 11 guys in the half marathon. There were 2 of the, I don't know the exact number. So we had 27 cross. 2 of those guys were probably somewhere around the 20 to 25th guy in my cross country team. They're getting rings. They
Mhm.
won a national title.
Yep.
They were on the team that raced and won. They weren't one of the scores, the top 3 or top 5, but they ran the darn race. They were part of the team. They're getting rings. And so the opportunity and yeah.
And we said inclusivity and opportunity. That's a
Yep.
big thing for me, is just opportunities, whether it's running or one thing I like to do is when we're going to the national championship, is there somewhere we can stop along the way for educational
Yep.
purposes? So we've gone to the St. Louis Arch, we've gone to the Oklahoma City Bombing Museum a couple times. We've hit zoos and other places because a lot of our kids, they have
Worlds
classes
of
where they
Fun
have to.
somewhere in there.
I've gone to Worlds of Fun once, yeah, where kids have to write like a paragraph or two about some cultural component. And since they're gone every weekend with me, they don't have time to do local stuff. So we try to go to these places to, again, open their eyes, like, or Washington, D.C. We
Yep.
didn't do
We
it this
both
year
did
when
that.
we were in
Oh, you did.
Richmond, but we did it, when we were there 3 years ago. And so these kids that have never, and it doesn't matter where you're from, Iowa or not, like they've never been to DC to see those monuments, and that's a pretty big deal.
And the
So,
family part for both of us. We went to DC this year, and when we went to DC, one of my former athletes from high school that I coached, my first job was a high school job. He lives there now. So he came out and walked with us and talked to the team a little bit.
mhm.
I think both of us try to do that. If we're in areas where we know
Yeah.
people around or that we've coached or, including them. I have a guy that it's a doctor. He's a doctor in Kentucky. Whenever he comes through town, he stops by and says hi. and he'll talk to the team, and that's pretty cool. And like we hit up Rushmore during our camp. We do a scavenger hunt at Rushmore. Just we're not stuck in just our campus. We get out and do some things.
Love it.
Go
Just
JUCO.
here, yeah, go JUCO. And hear you guys talk about, running into different people, parts of the country. When I got home I went to New Jersey for Christmas. When I got home, I had a Christmas card from my college coach. And I was the first, well, second class, but first team that ever he won a conference title with. And I thought, how many Christmas cards did this guy send out? Because over 20 years
Just
of
you.
coaching.
Just you.
Just you.
It's like, that's amazing.
All of my Christmas cards I have on my fridge right now are all the only ones I
From
got. Were all
athletes.
athletes that I
Nice.
coached.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Did you get
awesome.
Amanda? Did you get one from Amanda
No,
D?
and I sent 0 out. No, she doesn't like me anymore. So
No, that's not true. She just doesn't know your address, probably.
that's probably what it is. Yeah, she probably does like me more. She just doesn't have my address. You're right.
It literally got lost in the mail.
Yes, yes.
It happens.
Amanda's one of probably my more successful women I've ever coached, and she had 2
Great
years with
girl.
me and then
Yep.
spent 3 years with me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It only
So-
took me 2 years to get her great, and it took him 3 years. But who's counting?
Who's keeping track, right,
You
Coach?
guys need a
Right, right,
comedy
right.
show.
Yeah.
right.
I mean, she ran
So-
17-12 for me, like 19 something for you. Like,
Which was good enough. Sorry. Had that great foundation on her.
yes.
No, you
Like
guys have
unloosening the top of a jar before you give it to someone else to finish it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Man, you want to talk about a JUCO? Just her like she worked 40 hours a week.
Oh yeah. Wow.
She ran her own baking business,
Yep.
ran 70 miles a week.
Helped on the farm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
helped on the farm. Wow.
Yeah.
Amanda,
Tough.
amazing. Just
Yep.
an amazing person.
I love the farm kids. I love the farm. Like
Yeah.
they're awesome. They're such hard workers.
Well, Coach, I think you raised a really good point, and this was nothing that we had scheduled, but you kind of brought it up in my mind as far as that transition in from high school to college, and Amanda working 40 hours a week when she was at JUCO and having her own business. People don't realize that, especially where Rich and I came from, and we were living at home. You could still kind of still have your life that you had in high
Sure.
school to some extent, and still have those friends or girlfriends or anything like that, and you can kind of grow. And then, all right, now I got 2 years to leave, but it still kind of gives you that little bit of like, oh, we're not just pulling you right out of the nest and throwing you in
Mhm.
Fort Dodge, Iowa.
The relationship part is a part of, I think, one of the recruiting problems we have sometimes. They oh well, I just want to go to 4 year, and because I don't want to I don't want to start and then start over again,
Mhm.
right? And my perspective on that is we understand it. We both
Yeah.
understand that part. And it is, a tough part of it, but the cool thing is, and I don't know about Jim and you guys, but like my closest friends are probably more my college friends than my high school friends. And in this case, you get two sets.
Mhm.
You get to build more networks.
Yep.
You have more recommendations from different
Mhm.
professors, different areas. Like you have so much a bigger circle
Yeah. Definitely.
because you have this circle at the junior college and you have this circle at your 4 year. That relationship part. Sorry, I kind of got off the
Amen.
question.
You're good. I know you guys have some closing statements you guys want to make, and we want to kind of compare. Hey, is junior college competitive with Division One and stuff like that? But Rich, you and I always say to each other, we do this podcast for our younger selves. What we would have given to have this conversation when we were on the recruiting trail. So really, just kind of smiling the whole time we're doing this, because this is some stuff that people need to hear, and hopefully the right people get this before they go on the recruiting trail, because you guys are kind of outlining it for us.
And I know maybe I don't know if you want to show the different standards, but I think the one good point also to make is and we'll talk about how competitive it really is at junior college because I think a lot of people don't understand that. But at the same time, when you look at like Mark and I who have 115 kids, I don't care if you're a 4 flat miler or a 5:30 miler for a guy. If you're gonna come here and you're gonna go to class every day, work hard, come to practice every day and work hard, that's what I want. I want accountable, responsible young adults, and that's what we're here to help you do. So it doesn't matter what your marks are, because the kids will say, "Oh, what time do I need for you to recruit me?" If you're looking for a scholarship, yeah, I'll give you some times, but at the same time, I want someone who's going to come in here and bust their butt and be a good teammate. But yeah, there you can see some of the marks there with the winning performance and the eighth best performance there were in the field events last year at nationals, and it's kind of crazy.
And I would say that the running events, some of these field events are different than others, and it just kind of depends on what. Well, and there's the standards. So you got the qualifying standards there. There's the running events. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
sprinting in JUCO is something else.
Yeah. And I
We
feel bad.
Wow,
Yeah.
what was
Because we
that,
get kids that'll be
400?
like, "Oh, coach, I ran 23 flat in the 200. What can you give me?" I'm like, "Hey, dude, if you can't run 10-3 or 21 flat, you're not making finals.
we
And
had a
we're trying to
we,
be competitive, so we can't scholarship that."
we had a kid run 20.48, didn't make the final. He didn't
Wow.
make the final that year. Our
That's
our
ridiculous.
group of kids that made the final that year, I think it was better than the SEC final that year. I think if I remember right, the last time we were in New Mexico, it
Hmm.
was insane. It was insane.
Yeah. And the 800, you had to run 151 to make finals.
Yep.
So
And
that
there was two
you could win it. You
148s.
used to be able to win it with that, and you can't
Yeah.
now.
And there was like two 148s in the
Hmm.
prelim.
Yeah.
The one year, the whole top eight were under 150. And that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And like you said before that, it's incredible. Or like the 10K, the 7 years I've been here, last year is the first time I think I've seen someone that was not Wesley Banguria break 30. Wesley Kiptu now, Hoka.
Hmm. Yep.
But in what the top six were under 30
Hmm.
this year at nationals in the 10K. It's just incredible. It's incredible. And you have this chart, and that's great. The one thing that I think you could blast out there that kids don't know exists is TFRS.
Hmm.
So TFRRS,
Yep.
that is the athletic.net of college. You can find everything and anything that you want on any division, any school, any kid on TFRS. And I think that's important because we've been saying it. I had a guy call me like, "Oh, this guy jumps 22 feet long jump. You need to offer him. You need to offer him." I'm like, "You don't understand. Like you had to jump 24 feet to score that year or something like that." And he's like, "Oh, that's not true." I was like, "Are you at your computer?" And he said,
Hmm.
"Yeah." I was like, "Okay, put TFRS in." And I spell it out to him. He puts it in there and he opens it, and you could hear his
Yeah.
mind be blown
Yeah.
through the phone. He's like, "Oh." And then we started looking at some of the other events, and it was just like he just had no clue.
Yep.
And Tfers is the place to go to find that.
Yeah. And even if you look, talk about the 800 again. So you gotta, I don't care if it's an Iowa kid or whoever. "Hey, coach, I ran 156." Hey, that's awesome. But it takes 153 just to qualify for nationals. So now there's probably 35 other guys that have run that time or faster. And then you have to run 151 to make finals to try to score a point. So if you
In the
ran
mid
156, I'm happy for you, but I probably can't give you money because there's other guys that are running 153 right now that want money. You might
in the
run
middle
153, but
in the middle distance events are a little bit different indoor because there's so many. We are very middle distance heavy indoor because we run the 600 nationally, we run the 1,000 nationally, we
Mhm.
still run the 4x8 nationally, where the NCAA doesn't do that either, and we have the DMR in the mile and all that. So the standard, if you looked at it, some kids will look at that standard, go, "Oh, the standard's not that tough." Well, the indoor standard is a little bit
Mhm.
weaker,
Yeah.
but that's because it's spread out all over the place.
Yeah. And
I
even
think
like the 5K, kids are like, "Oh, coach, I can run 15 flat." Well, guess what? That's great because maybe that's what place, but those guys, maybe they weren't running a fast race because they all had
right.
three other races to
Yeah.
run. So they might have run, this slow pace the whole way. So if you don't have 14:20 speed, it doesn't matter. You're not going to score.
And we're rolling just like the NCAA. 14:20. My guy got 10th place this last year indoor run, 14:20. That would have been top two for the last 20 years,
Hmm.
probably,
Yeah.
nationally. So
Yeah.
it's
So that, yeah, you look, the 14:53 for indoors and 15:03 for outdoors is qualifying, but that's not going to get you close to scoring
it
anything.
used to be like 15:25, like
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Yep. Yep.
I
Yeah.
think too, an interesting point you brought up with the indoor stuff is the more events, it just means more participation. So
Yeah.
that's which then leads to more opportunities for recruiting.
Yep.
Yep. And we have a unique system where we have white cards. So each men and women get 3 white cards. And so that means you can take a kid, whether they've qualified or not. Now, in D and I's case, a lot of times we're using those white cards for maybe a kid qualified in the weight throw, or the shot would be better. Qualified for the shot, and there's maybe only 10 kids with an auto mark in the weight throw. So we're white carding him into the weight
Mhm.
throw. Where some schools maybe they're not getting any qualifiers at all.
Yeah.
They haven't hit anything, and they can take 3 kids to the meet. So there's that part too on the opportunity side, and it just some people use them differently than others, but
Right.
we do have that.
Cool. Great stuff.
Yeah, is there anything that we missed that is in that closing remarks? Yeah,
I'm looking
Mark's
to
got the
see.
notes in front of him.
I do. I'm
yeah.
looking to
Just
see.
there's
There's
no
no transfer.
transfer portal.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
transfer portal in JUCO.
All the time. Coach, I want to go to the transfer portal. Call another school. Like, we don't have that. Open
Yeah.
up your email and send an email.
And the age thing comes up a little bit here and there, but that's become a thing in every division nowadays. And so there's that, and I don't know that we missed much. I think we talked about checking to make sure. I
Just
mean,
the roster limits now. But I mean, that
yeah,
stuff's
there's no,
constantly changing, so it's hard to
yeah,
know where that's
we
going.
don't have that, but people are asking that question, what does this mean, right? And we were lucky enough at the Iowa one. Coach Gephardt from Kansas State talked on it, which obviously gave weight to it. Um, you know, there's these SECs deciding on what they're going 10 and 25. So 35 total, 10 cross, 25 track, and that's their limit. Now the total that I think is 17 and 45 or
Like that.
17 and 35, something like that is what the NCAA has decided, but some conferences have decided on less. A lot of people tell you everybody's going to eventually follow the SEC. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But what does that mean? That means they cannot have more than 10. They
No
cannot have more than
walk-ons,
17.
no
If they
projects.
if they have 17 kids on their roster, oh coach, I want to walk on. No, you can't. It's 17. And there are a lot of programs out there that are cutting kids right now because they
Mhm.
had 20 they're big time, they're big roster teams. Minnesota used to have big rosters, Michigan State has big rosters. If you had 30 kids on your cross country team, you can't do it anymore. Only have 17.
And
And so
some schools have gone straight international or JUCO transfers because they know what they're getting out of that.
yep,
They don't have to
Right.
worry about, is that kid going to turn
yep.
into something?
So you look at the recruiting landscape right now. You've got transfer portal. They're proven college kids. They know what they're getting. They've already went through college.
Mhm.
The international piece, and then you have the Americans. And it is I've heard from a D1 coach, like how can I risk this anymore? I can't
Yep.
risk it. The NCAA championships, 91st place was your number one high school 2 miler the year before. He was the second freshman to finish at NCAA D1s, and he was 91st. I think he ran like 8:38 in the 2 mile, and he could get 91st.
Wow.
There were like maybe eight or
Yeah.
nine freshmen in front of him, all East African, all East African. And so we provide, when you look at those roster limitations and you look at what's going on, we provide that time to grow and mature because
Mhm.
he, I think there's only, he was the second. I think the third was like 200th or something like that. Freshman year is hard to compete. So you come here, you get better, you get stronger, you get older, and then you go try to make that roster. You try to
And you
get
get
on.
a chance to compete while you're here
Yeah,
instead of
yeah.
watching.
You get to run nationals here.
Mhm.
You get to do this, you get to do that. Like Jonas came here, did all this stuff nationally, and then he was Utah State's #1 guy and was like 71st at D1 Nationals his first year out of JUCO. And it's the recruiting landscape has changed so much, and people, I don't think in America they're grasping that and understanding it, that they're mad. Oh, I'm waiting for this call. I'm waiting for that call. You're not getting it. It's not coming. So that reality right there. Sorry.
And so do you think with that being said, do you think that's going to help the junior college, that more people are going to start to
It
realize that
should.
and maybe take that opportunity to either go right to JUCO or maybe even go to a prep school, then go to, post grad fifth year and then go to the JUCO to increase their Division I chances, if that's what the ultimate goal is for the athlete?
It should. I just saw a comment on one of these posts the other day. I'm going to go run club. Go run club and try to get on that roster. Go run road races. Go
Oh, yeah,
enter
yeah.
these meets unattached. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Well, it's funny you say that, Coach, because um, there's this crazy thing going on where there's a lot of, I don't know if you guys see it at all, but these people, maybe they think a little bit more highly of themselves than what their actual ability is, but there's a lot of private coaching going on amongst the high
Um,
school ranks. And so I heard of at least one individual down here in South Carolina who his private coach was telling him, hey, train with me for another year, run open races, run road races, run open track races, and then we'll get you. And so this individual, his guidance counselor is a friend of mine, and was asking me because of my background and stuff. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm like, that's the worst thing you could do. I
mhm.
was like, you've got junior college, you've got Division III, you've got NAI. There's lots of
Yeah.
opportunities for this person. Why is that person telling you they want you to run with them for another year?
Mhm.
Is it
Yeah.
because is
Who's
he really have your
benefiting?
best interest in it,
Right.
or is it because you're going to be giving him another, two hundred
Yeah.
dollars a month for the next 12 months?
Yep. And a
And you're
feather in a
losing
cap.
out on a year to start your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you taking classes during that time? Are you with a team? Do
Well,
you have
that's the big
training
thing too.
partners?
You have
Are
training
you
partners.
competing? It's just different. And it maybe works for like 1%, but golly.
Hmm. Well, let's end on a positive note here.
Sorry.
This has been a great episode for real. We really appreciate what your time first and foremost, but the information and the intel that you've been able to give us, a little bit of banter back and forth between the two of you has been quite amusing and enjoyable to hear you guys jab at each other a little bit. You can see the friendship, but also the competitiveness between both you and Jimmy and I are really looking forward to the indoor and outdoor. I think the last time I watched a NJCAA cross country championship was when they had the videotape of me doing it back in 1995. So, Coach, I thank you for bringing that to us this year and having us become fans and getting to see that and watching it on the computer. And we are definitely excited to watch the conference, the region, and the nationals as well for both of you, indoors and outdoors.
Maybe we can get you guys at the National Cross Country Championships in Fort Dodge next fall.
Okay. I've
See,
To
never
be
been, so
continued.
yes,
let's do it.
yes. I like it. Love it.
Thanks, guys. We
Yeah,
appreciate it. Like we're just been talking about this topic for over a year and just trying to think of ways of how to massage this and get the word out as well. And we're still working on the message, but at the same time, like you guys have provided a great sounding board platform for us to do that. So thank you.
I love
Yeah,
it. I thank you so much. It
absolutely.
is.
Thank
I
you.
echo everything Dee said. It's
You're
great.
welcome. You're welcome.
And
You
D, we're
guys,
gonna
it's been fun.
Yeah, and Dee, we're going to need to get you back on to talk about Iowa Central a little bit more in depth about Fort
And
Dodge.
Iowa Western. We could talk
I
about
mean,
them too.
the Iowa Central conversation is probably a little boring, but
We'll find out. We'll
I
find
mean,
out.
it's Fort Dodge for
Yeah.
Talk
goodness
about
sake.
the dirty Dodge.
Yeah. How long do I have to go to
He
beat
said
his
it.
time? Yeah.
He said it. Oh,
Hey, we
no.
got a Chick-fil-A opening up now, so
Oh
Ooh,
my.
I ate
yeah.
at the Applebee's when I was there.
Yeah. That was your big recruiting meal, huh?
Yep. I got a mall.
We got a Walmart down the street.
Yep.
Chick-fil-A,
awesome.
really?
Yeah. It's on
Nice.
it's on prime real estate because we got Walmart, Target, Hy-Vee, Aldi's, and now Chick-fil-A all in the corners there, baby.
You got an
That's where it's
Aldi?
happening. Yeah.
Hy-Vee Chinese.
Aldi's. Oh yeah, Hy-Vee Chinese. You like that? Yeah.
I do. I
Yeah,
worked
that's
some
good.
Hy-Vee Chinese back in the
Yep.
day.
Yep.
Love it. Yeah. I
Awesome.
don't know. I
Jim, you
guess
got
if you really have to have that conversation about Iowa Central, you can.
Well, we're just trying to spread the word on the junior college
That's right.
system and the programs that are out there doing great things. And again, we like to highlight people that are doing great things, programs that are doing great things, and give a little bit of shine other than what's going on in the Power Four at Division One, because there's a lot of great stories and a lot of great individuals that are doing a lot of great things. So
You won't find a better one than D though. And
I'm gonna make up
I
some
put some
stories.
jabs out there, but you won't on the JUCO side.
Oh, thank
D's
you.
done it pretty darn well for a really long time.
Yeah, see, wasn't always that
Earned
color.
them. You earned those gray hairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
These
I'm
are
giving him
marks.
some of
Yeah.
I think he's got some of that gray since I joined.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been doing my best to try to give him some gray hairs.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you guys.
yes, thank you, Jim.
Send them off, Rich. Let them know where they can find us, and thank all the fans for watching.
All right, y'all. We do appreciate you joining us for the kickoff of 2025. We greatly appreciate Coach Bierbaum, Coach Brown joining us from Iowa Western, Iowa Central. Be on the lookout for all the great things they got coming up this indoor season. Stay tuned for a lot of great guests and a lot of great episodes. I know 2024 is going to be hard to top, but we're going fast and we're furious, and we're coming at you for 2025. So stay tuned for more epic stories, more epic guests, and more epic content. Until next time, take care from the Airey Bros.